Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories, and don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. I never imagined I'd end up the villain in my own family just for having the nerve to tell the truth. But apparently, in my family, honesty is more offensive than betrayal, abuse, or abandonment, as long as the person responsible plays the victim well enough. I'm 33 female, the oldest of 3 kids. My younger sister, Kelly, 31 female, has always been the dramatic one. Brilliant, yes. Gorgeous, absolutely. But also deeply impulsive and chronically addicted to the idea of being in love. Kelly didn't date. She fell, hard, and when she fell, the entire family had to brace for impact. There were always fireworks, always passion, always chaos, and then, inevitably, a crash landing. My parents have always coddled her through the wreckage. "That's just Kelly," they'd say. "She feels things more deeply." Meanwhile, I was the designated calm one, the fixer, the emotional buffer between her meltdowns and real-world consequences. That role was silently assigned to me early on, and I carried it for years, until I finally put it down 6 years ago. The final straw, a man named Ben. Ben was the kind of guy everyone liked. My parents adored him almost instantly. He was handsome, charming, and knew exactly how to act like he belonged. But something about him always felt off to me. Too polished, too rehearsed. I got the distinct sense I was being sold something, not introduced to a real person. One moment that stands out even now. At a family barbecue, early in their relationship, Ben got drunk and loudly told one of our cousins that he didn't believe in monogamy, and that if a man gets bored in a marriage, he either cheats or dies inside. Everyone laughed it off. Classic Ben, just being funny. But I remember watching Kelly's face in that moment. She laughed too, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of doubt. Still, a year later, they were engaged. Kelly was over the moon. I kept my reservations to myself. I told myself maybe I was overreacting. Maybe I just didn't like him personally. It wasn't my relationship. But then it became personal. A few months before the wedding, I got a message from an old college friend of mine, Tina. We'd drifted apart over the years, but we were still friendly. She was in full-blown panic mode. She was pregnant, and the father was Ben. They had hooked up during what Ben had claimed was a rough patch in his relationship. Tina had no idea he was engaged. The second she found out, she ended it. But it was too late. She was pregnant, and when she told him, Ben told her in no uncertain terms that he wanted nothing to do with the baby. He even suggested she take care of it because it would ruin everything for him. Tina was devastated. She wasn't asking for anything from me, just needed someone to talk to. But once I had confirmation, I couldn't stay silent. I gathered every bit of information Tina could provide, and I sat Kelly down, just the two of us. I told her everything. What happened, when it happened, and what Ben had said about the baby. I told her she can't marry Ben because the marriage will end up in a disaster. She didn't react the way I hoped. No tears, no questions, just complete emotional shutdown. Then she told me to leave. The next day, I got a text from her, a text. Not only was I no longer invited to the wedding, but she was cutting contact entirely. She said I was trying to ruin her happiness, that I'd always been jealous of her, that the baby is not Ben's, and that if I really cared, I would have kept quiet. She blocked me on everything. And that was it. Our relationship gone. My parents. They stood by her. They said it wasn't my place to interfere. That the baby is not Ben's and I ruined the mood before the wedding. Never mind that Ben had actively tried to force a woman into terminating a pregnancy and then gaslit everyone around him. Apparently, the bigger crime was telling the truth. And yes, I didn't have a DNA test confirming Ben was the father, but I had all the messages between Tina and Ben confirming they had an affair and that he knew she is pregnant. So I backed off. Ben and Kelly got married. They moved into a new house. She had a baby eventually, a little girl. But I wasn't part of any of it. I stopped attending family holidays when I knew she'd be there. Then I started hearing rumors that Ben was rarely home, that he spent more time traveling for work than with his family. Kelly stopped posting photos with him. Then, about 2 weeks ago, I got a call from my parents. They asked me to come over. They needed to talk. When I arrived, they were both seated at the kitchen table, faces drawn, hands folded, like they were about to tell me someone died. And in a way, they kind of did. Ben had left Kelly. He met someone younger, apparently, and decided to start fresh. He kicked Kelly out of the house and moved his new girlfriend in within weeks. Kelly was now living in a friend's tiny apartment with her 9-month-old daughter. She was barely making ends meet, had no savings, and was getting the absolute minimum in child support. Then came the pitch. My parents wanted me to pay Kelly's rent for the next 6 months while she gets back on her feet. They said she was struggling, vulnerable, and alone. They said I was doing well financially, I am, and it would mean so much to the family if I could help. I sat there for a moment, stunned. Then I asked as calmly as I could, "Do you remember what happened 5 years ago? Do you remember how I tried to warn her? How she blocked me, humiliated me, cut me out of her life because I told the truth? And now I'm supposed to fund her life?" They went quiet. My mom started crying. My dad said I was being heartless, that Kelly was family, that the past shouldn't matter when family is in need. I reminded them that I was family too, until Kelly decided otherwise, until she treated me like garbage for telling her something she didn't want to hear. And now that her world has collapsed, I'm supposed to play savior. I told them the truth. She made her bed. Now she can lie in it. I'm not paying her rent. My mom begged. My dad called me judgmental. I left before I said something I'd really regret. Since then, I've been getting passive-aggressive messages from relatives. Apparently, I'm selfish, vindictive, jealous, and cruel. One even suggested I was punishing an innocent baby, which I found especially insulting, considering I've never even met my niece. I didn't even know her name until 2 weeks ago. Kelly hasn't contacted me directly, but from what I hear, she's telling people I wanted her to fail, and that this is my way of getting revenge. She's even spun some weird narrative where none of what happened with Ben was that serious, and that I blew it all out of proportion because I never liked him. Wild. The man just left her for a younger version. The truth is, I could afford to help. I could pay her rent for 6 months without hurting financially. But I won't. Because helping her now would be setting a precedent. That I will always be the safety net for people who burned me. And that's not a pattern I'm willing to create. Still, a small part of me feels guilty. Not for Kelly, but for the baby. She didn't ask for any of this. She didn't choose her parents. I think about that sometimes. But ultimately, I don't believe I owe anything to people who treated me like a villain for refusing to enable a lie. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for refusing to pay my sister's rent after she cut me off for warning her about the man who eventually left her? OP is not the a-hole. OP didn't ruin her life. Ben did. OP tried to stop the train wreck before it happened, and she threw OP off the tracks for it. What gets me is how OP's parents and relatives are conveniently forgetting that Kelly is the one who chose to cut ties. Now that she's been abandoned by the man she defended, she wants to rewrite history and turn OP into her financial crutch? Actions have consequences. She made it very clear OP wasn't her family when it didn't suit her narrative. Good for OP for setting a boundary and actually sticking to it. And now let's hear community's opinion. So let me get this straight. You warned your sister about a manipulative cheater, got excommunicated for it, and now that the cheater did exactly what you predicted, you're the bad guy for not bailing her out? Classic flying monkey behavior from your parents. Honestly, I'm amazed they had the gall to guilt trip you into playing ATM after treating you like the family scapegoat for years. Let them take out a second mortgage if they care so much. Not the a-hole 100 times over. I actually do feel for Kelly. She got duped by a narcissist and is now a single mom in a tough spot. But she's not your responsibility. She chose to believe lies over your truth, chose to sever the relationship, and now expects unconditional support just because things turned out the way you said they would. That's not how family works. Real family doesn't cut you out for protecting them. Don't feel guilty for not sacrificing your peace and finances for someone who only remembers you when they need something. You can have compassion without becoming a doormat. Not the a-hole. The audacity of these people. Kelly torched your relationship, spat on your honesty, married a known cheater, and now that her fairy tale imploded, suddenly you're the family bank? Nope. Nah, you're not her insurance policy for bad decisions. And your parents acting like you're cold. Where was their concern when you were the one being cut off and smeared? People love to talk about family when it benefits their narrative. You're not heartless. You just finally stopped being their emotional and financial punching bag. Not the a-hole. Stay strong. I, 35 female, was married to my ex-husband, 36, for 10 years. We divorced 3 years ago. We have a son together who's 5. Our divorce wasn't messy. No one cheated, and we agreed on everything when we divorced. We co-parent our son, and he's an active father. In the divorce, it was written that I would keep my engagement ring. It was a family heirloom from my ex-husband's family, and would one day give it to our son. My ex-husband has a new girlfriend. I really like her, and so does my son. I invite them both over for all the events involving our son and holidays. They just had a baby girl together. I'm very excited for them both, and my son is excited to have a sister. My ex-husband sat me down and asked me to give him the ring so that he could pass it down to his daughter, since it's an heirloom, and that way it would stay in his family forever. I reminded him the ring is specifically in our divorce agreement and belongs to our son. He suggested we change that, and he passed down something different. I said no, and I've been getting non-stop calls and texts from him about how unfair it is, because at the time, he didn't also have a daughter. So, am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. His reasoning doesn't make any sense. His daughter would get an engagement ring from her future fiancé. It's just a poor excuse to get the ring for his new girlfriend. Edit. A few commenters have pointed out that some families have a tradition of passing down the ring to their future son-in-laws to propose to their daughters, which is perfectly understandable. Doesn't change my vote on this, though. OP's divorce agreement specifically states she is to keep the ring, to be handed down to their son. If her ex felt that strongly about keeping it in the family, then he shouldn't have let it go so easily. Also, who's to say that the son won't marry for life? A bit pessimistic to assume otherwise. Not the a-hole. With your son, it will stay in the family as well, and you both agreed on that. It's up to your son, when he is an adult, to decide on this matter. Not the a-hole. I have an inkling he has intentions on giving it to his new girlfriend down the road, and not his daughter. It's specific in the divorce decree it goes to your son. Now, when said son is 18, if he wants to give it to his dad, it's in his right to do so, but that would be his decision. I have a terrible dog allergy, and during my childhood and teenage years, my mother decided it would be smart to not only get 1, but 4. Through that, she managed to completely isolate me from my family, and I couldn't leave my room whenever I was home, since the dogs were allowed everywhere, and I couldn't stay in the room with them without being unable to breathe and constantly sneezing. I lived like that for 4 years before I had enough and moved on to my university campus. My mother fought for me to stay, not because of me, but because she would miss my dad's child support payments, since she was legally required to give them to me now. Our relationship became pretty frosty, but at one point we sat down and had a conversation, and I thought things were now okay. She continues to pay me monthly, and I have a decent job, so I managed to find a place of my own. Well, over the past few months, I found out my mother wasn't paying the full support to me. It was about €200 less than it should be, which she kept. I confronted her and told her that I need the money for uni and my apartment, but she claimed what she's already paying me is more than enough and that I need to get my spending habits under control. I told her I can't work full-time because of my degree, but she simply didn't care. Since that money legally belongs to me, I've decided to talk to a lawyer about suing her for the amount she owes me and the one she kept to herself all my life. I went through with it, and we are now settling this through court. My mom's husband begged me to drop it and said he would pay me around €1,000 as compensation and that I need to think about the fact that they still have to pay off their house, that the dogs need food, that he has to support my sisters, etc. Even my dad told me I was being too harsh on my mother. I simply don't care about that woman who's isolated me my whole childhood. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I have 3 sisters, and I'm the oldest brother. The only thing I'm concerned about is losing them in the process, because I know I have to go no contact once this is settled. She's already been calling me non-stop, and I blocked her number, and she's been using my sister to contact me. She's a really good manipulator, so I'm really worried and wondering if this is all worth it. Edit 2. As to some of the questions, my sisters are 18, 12, and 9. The oldest is my stepsister, daughter of my mom's new husband. The other two are half-siblings of mine. They mean the world to me. I feel very protective of them, and I did everything I could in my situation to be a good brother to them. At the moment, I'm also trying to support my oldest younger sister with her wish to move out. She might move in with me. I hope I can keep contact with them in secret, or through my grandma. I'm very scared of losing my youngest sister. I've been working since I was 16, and before moving out, my mom did take part of my money for rent, so there is a pattern. My mom managed the child support, and my dad is a very let's just keep it the way it always was type of guy. So he just kept paying my mom and trusted her to give it to me, even when I told him I don't get anything. I'm very happy with the rational comments I'm receiving because I catch myself still trying to excuse her behavior. I love my parents dearly. I love my family. I don't want to be in this situation, but at the same time, I don't see what else I can do. Not the a-hole. I find it comical that you were told to get your spending under control by the people who are stealing your money to be able to afford dog food for the dogs that are the reason you had to move out in the first place. Not the a-hole. Let's see. She was knowingly endangering and confining you with her dogs and then stealing from you. Go on with full force. Not the a-hole. What your mom's husband and dad expect from you is being the bigger person. But ask yourself, is your mom ever going to make it up to you? Will she be thankful to you for letting it drop? Is your relationship with your mom even worth it to you anymore? I mean, I absolutely love my dog. I would quit a relationship over my dog. But getting a dog when your child is allergic? What nonsense is this? My 28 female brother Mark, 30 male, is getting married next week to my future sister-in-law, Sarah, 29 female, next weekend. They got engaged in 2020, but are having the wedding now after waiting a few years to save up. Sarah really has become a part of our family, and she and I developed a nice friendship. She and Mark have also been really excited about the wedding, up until maybe 2 to 3 months ago, which is to be expected as the big day looms closer. Now they're both stressed, say they wish they had just eloped to save all this money and headache. We had Sarah's bachelorette party over the weekend. It was myself, Sarah, and 2 of Sarah's longtime friends, who are also in the wedding party. We were having a nice time at a restaurant when Sarah started talking about how much she regrets deciding to have this wedding in the first place. Then, she said that the only reason that they're having a wedding is because my brother's family, my family, would never have gotten over it if they'd eloped. I protested a bit at first, feeling bad that she felt pressured by my family into something that she didn't want to do, but also reassured her that my family would have been perfectly fine if they hadn't had a wedding. Sarah then kind of laughed and looked at me and said, "Do you really think that your mom would have gotten over it if her firstborn son decided to elope?" I said that she absolutely would have gotten over it, and pointed out that my parents also eloped. Sarah then turned to the others and said, "She's wrong. Their mom would have hated me forever for marrying her son without a wedding, and Mark could never bear letting his mommy down anyway." I admit that my mom can be a bit over the top when it comes to events and such, but she stayed out of the wedding planning entirely, on purpose. I told Sarah that she was wrong, and told her to stop blaming my family for a decision that she made. Things got awkward after that. We all sipped our drinks for a minute before Sarah and her maid of honor got up to go to the bathroom together, leaving me and the other bridesmaids at the table. The other bridesmaid, Lily, then turned to me and told me that it was super rude of me to call Sarah out in front of her friends, just days before her wedding. I stood my ground and said that I wouldn't let my family be blamed for something that isn't their fault. Lily insisted that maybe I don't know the full story, and that I could never understand how Sarah is feeling, so I shouldn't add stress to her life while she needs to vent. No one else spoke to me for the rest of the night. Things were a bit better in the morning, but everything still feels awkward, and Sarah's been distant since then. Now I'm wondering if I overreacted, and if I should have just let her vent. I wouldn't want to be called out in front of my friends like that, but I also felt a little concerned, and that it was my job to stand up for my family. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. She spoke poorly of your family, and you defended them. It's silly and pathetic to blame them for your choices. They say you don't know the full story. You don't need to know anything to defend those you love. Not the a-hole. Sarah seemed to want to play the victim. You pointed out that she is not. An honest refutation is much kinder than a sarcastic, "Aw, poor you." Her efforts to make your family the people victimizing her failed. So your comments became what victimizes her. I hope this doesn't become a pattern with her. Not the a-hole. She wanted you to sit silently while she badmouthed your family. The "Mark could never bear letting his mommy down" comment is very dismissive of her fiancé. I was telling a colleague about this, and they didn't explicitly say, but I got the vibe they thought I was an a-hole. I got married about 6 months ago at a private venue that I hired that has a lot of beautiful land. There's a restaurant there that is closed for weddings. About 20 minutes before I'm to walk down the aisle, I'm anxiously looking out the window at all my guests who are seated talking amongst themselves. I'm upstairs looking out the window and they can't see me. Then I see a limousine pull up right where my guests are. I thought maybe my husband's groomsmen surprised him with a limo to arrive in because I didn't hire it. And then I see another bride get out. My guests all turn to her and look really confused because it's not me. Turns out that bride hired the venue for photos that morning before I arrived. She was meant to be there before her own wedding at another close-by venue. She hired the venue for 1 hour from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. It was now 3 p.m. I was really upset because my whole family was there and saw her before me. I wanted to be the only bride my family, especially my dad, saw that day. Or at least the first bride they saw. I didn't cause a scene, but I cried, and I got my bridesmaids to get her to leave, which she refused to do until she got a few photos. It didn't ruin my wedding. I forgot about it as soon as I saw my groom at the aisle. But it was not what I needed just before I walked down the aisle. When telling the story, my coworker thought it wasn't nice I made her leave, and even said it would have been a good photo op for the both of us to have a photo together. And she felt bad the other bride didn't get all the photos she wanted. There was very clearly a wedding going on. If I were the bride, I would have left when I saw there was another wedding. I was very chill about everything else that went wrong, and a lot of things did. My original wedding venue closed down 10 weeks before, and I had to reschedule my whole wedding at this new place, which worked out well. But this really upset me. Am I the a-hole for making the other bride leave? Not the a-hole. The other bride is an a-hole. To interrupt someone's wedding is incredibly rude. The venue should have handled it, not you. Not the a-hole. She showed up in a ducking limo. That is attention grabbing. She shouldn't have shown up 7 hours late, but definitely should have left on her own after realizing another wedding was happening. I have absolutely no sympathy for the other bride. She ducked up and isn't entitled to crash another person's wedding for her photos. Not the a-hole. You paid for a private venue during certain hours, as did she. The biggest a-hole here is the venue for not enforcing agreements and allowing her on the property and making you and your bridal party have to confront her. I, 57 male, have 2 daughters, Jane, 23 female, and Lucy, 20 female. Some context. 10 years ago, while I was married to their mother, Amy, 55 female, I began an affair with Sarah, 38 female. I ended up moving to a different state to live with Sarah, divorced Amy, and married Sarah a year later. I was just very unhappy in my marriage with Amy. She is a very mentally ill woman, and I couldn't continue the life I had with her. I did not fight for custody, as I felt that I would further hurt Jane and Lucy. I paid child support and saw them once a year per visitation agreement until they turned 18. Over the past few years, Sarah and I have really tried to reconnect and build relationships with Jane and Lucy. I have apologized for my mistakes and do everything I can to be involved in their lives. However, neither Jane nor Lucy are interested in a relationship with us. Their reasons being that I destroyed their mother's life, and they will never forgive me for missing their childhoods. I understand their pain, but I can't change the past, and considering it's been 10 years since the divorce, and the girls are adults, I'm of the opinion that they need to make an effort to see my perspective and work towards forgiveness. The current situation at hand is where I may be the a-hole. Jane and Lucy are both under my health insurance, as their mother doesn't work. I have really good insurance through my job, and we are in the U.S., so Jane and Lucy are technically eligible for coverage under my plan until they are 26. However, when it was time for me to re-enroll for the upcoming year, I decided to remove the girls from my plan. I find it a bit ridiculous that even though Jane and Lucy are unwilling to even attempt to have any kind of relationship with me, they have no problem benefiting from my health insurance policy that I work extremely hard for. Sarah and I notified the girls of the decision over an email and even offered to help them find new policies of their own. I know that Jane has a good job that would most likely offer an insurance package, and Lucy is in college, so she could probably enroll under the university's insurance. Or the girls could convince their mom to finally get a job so she can cover them. Jane responded to the email, saying my decision is cruel and that I have now destroyed any chance of having a relationship with either of them. It's been several months since I removed the girls as beneficiaries, and I sometimes question my decision. The girls have blocked me from their social media accounts, which has been hard for me, as it was the only way for me to be involved in their lives. I still think I made the right choice by standing my ground, but also wonder whether or not, am I the a-hole? So, you cheated on your wife, divorced her, and married your way younger wife, and moved to another state, away from the family you created with your ex, going low contact with your daughters. I did not fight for custody, as I felt that would further hurt Jane and Lucy. You confirmed not wanting them by not fighting for them. Now that they are adults and the parenting stage is over, you want to reconnect with your daughters. After all you did, it's obvious that rebuilding a relationship, rebuilding their trust in you, which you had shattered all those years ago, that it is something that is going to take time and patience. So what do? Kick them off your health plan. You're the a-hole. You're the a-hole. There are so many of the same stories on here. I had a midlife crisis, left my wife for a younger woman, and basically abandoned my kids. I know it was my fault, but I don't think my kids are forgiving me fast enough, so I'm punishing them. You are the definition of a-hole. You're the a-hole because of this situation. 1. You abandoned your children when they were 10 and 13 because you were unhappy being married to their mother, had an affair, divorce, and saw your kids once a year until they turned 18. 2. Now, when they're young adults, you want them to forgive you and see your perspective of it. You abandoned your children because you didn't want to stay married to their mother. 3. When you failed to reach out to them and give them proper time to handle the fact that you abandoned them, then you punish them by taking away their health insurance? 4. How did you think this was going to work out? They would magically be happy with you when you abandoned them for a second time by ending the support with the health plan? Of course, this decision would destroy any chance of mending this broken relationship. You punished them because they couldn't forgive you for abandoning them. Instead of giving them more time, you just took away something good you actually did for them. Why?